Welcome to our fourth talk in this series about best practices guidelines for the Apricot Heritage Orchard, a landmark next to the Los Altos History Museum. Our topic is wheat abatement. During the winter rainy season, a lush cover crop grows under the apricot trees. And that changes dramatically when the cover crop is tilled into the soil. So why does the orchardist disc in the cover crop? Well, there's several reasons. And Phil, our city orchardist, Phil Deach, has helped me to understand these goals that he has to kind of balance here. First of all, it's important to reduce the water competition between those annual plants and the apricot trees, and also to control the invasive species that are seen as pests in many of our agricultural fields. Also, it's important to maintain a healthy food web and an attractive landscape. So the control of weeds occurs really throughout the year, and it's not really on schedule. It's as needed. That depends on the season. So there's a pause during the winter when it's too wet to get the tractor into the orchard. And the timing obviously then varies with rainfall. So Phil Deach, our city orchardist, has several different procedures that he's explained to me as to how he can control the weeds in the orchard. One is tilling with the discer. And so if you look at this soil here that has been tilled, you see lots of green stuff in it. And that tilling turns the organic material back into the soil. Another option he has is to mow, and that's good because it creates mulch that kind of protects the water moisture and adds nutrients to the soil. But often those weeds still grow up where he can't get in with his tractor. The weeds will get taller around the trunks of the trees, and it's necessary to go in and hoe by hand. He can make decisions on what type of cover crop to plant. But I want to emphasize that no herbicides are used in our heritage orchard. And this is consistent with the policies throughout Los Altos. Now, the ban on herbicides makes it a little bit difficult to control weeds along the sidewalks in our city centers. So Phil goes in with a rototiller or discs real close to keep those edges clean. Some of the considerations in weed abatement within the Civic Center orchard really, call for some balancing acts here. So the orchardist, Phil, is responsible for his equipment. He has to maintain the tractor and the different attachments that go with the tractor, rototiller, seed spreader, and he makes the decisions on the cover crop. But the multiple factors that he has to balance include how to restore the organic material into the soil, how to maintain water penetration to the tree roots, and also the aesthetics of the landscape. As you can imagine, in a community as diverse as ours, there are a variety of opinions about what looks good, what's beautiful. But we'll talk more about that in the orchard talk about beautification. So have you ever heard the adage that one person's wildflowers or one person's weeds is another person's wildflowers? I guess it goes both ways. The mustard was so beautiful that I remember seeing it, that was just like a yellow blanket under the orchards as I was growing up in this area. And this bindweed here is lovely, but it can choke out beneficial plants. Oxalis, really pretty, but it is spreads really easily and it's very difficult to get out of an area. And then, of course, our dandelions, they have such exquisite parachutes to spread their traveling seeds. You know, I kind of like to think of these weeds really as travelers because they're perfectly designed to find open ground and come and settle in. What are some of the things that we're discussing for the future of weed abatement in our orchard? Well, this is ongoing discussions within the Orchard Commons Committee. And so one thing we're talking about, some of the advocates um, of regenerative, struggling to get that word there, regenerative agriculture. That's a nice word, I like it. Is no-till agriculture. And some of the arguments there are that under your level of tilling, a hard pan develops that actually makes it impermeable to water. Well, there's several considerations about that and things that we need to discuss there. When we get drip irrigation into our orchard, then we'll have to think again, you know, what's the strategy to work with? Will there be mulch along the drip lines? Will there be mowing in between? That's all open for discussion now. Another recommendation has been to establish a beneficial plant guild. And this would be to encourage those good bugs that control pests, to reduce evaporation from the soil, and then to enhance the nutrients that go back into the soil. So kind of thinking in terms of nature as fertilizer, if you will. And so it's the rich network of that complex food web that helps break down the nutrients the trees need. What would a beneficial plant guild look like? We don't know. We're going to have to experiment. And sometimes looking at how things have been done in the past help give us ideas. At the time that this orchard was planted in the early 1800s, the orchards were surrounded with fallow strips of wildflowers. And this provided for a balance of the beneficial insects that helped control the pests. And it also provided for a pollinator-friendly flower diversity. However, research has shown that where these fallow strips have been taken out with modern agriculture, that insect diversity has declined, particularly in the areas that have been studied in Europe. Another consideration is the technological advances. So in the time that J. Gilbert Smith planted this orchard, his options were handheld size or horse-drawn equipment. There's stories of him using a horse-drawn plow in the orchard. But as soon as the more modern technology came in, like tractors, he was very keen on adopting that. You can actually see some of the old tractors used in the orchards in our region in the outdoor exhibit at the Los Altos History Museum. And of course, with the chemical revolution came herbicides, which really transformed our agricultural practices, but are no longer seen as suitable considering public safety within an urban environment. So I think it's good to, you know, think about how things have changed over the past as we try to think about how we want to shape our future in terms of the weed abatement within our heritage orchard. So I would like to hear from you. What are your comments, your suggestions about weed abatement? Please email me at Jane. Email me, Jane, at hello@losaltoshistory.org. Thanks, and I hope to hear from you.